Let me have you answer a quick question. I want you to quickly discern your ability to engage in personal balance in your life. And I'm going to give you a scale to think about this. 1, very, very poor. My life is really out of balance. 5, my life is absolutely exactly where I want it to be in terms of life, work-life balance, meaning, and purpose. Quickly turn to somebody at your table and give them a number. 1 to 5, where are you in terms of life balance? All right, let me pull you back if I could, real quickly. If you scored 1 to 3, let me see your hands, 1 to 3. Oh my goodness. If those of you who 4 and 5, raise your hand, okay. 4 and 5s are probably lying a little bit, you know. It's in the afternoon, right? Okay, remember, Dr. Wansik may be looking, okay, someplace. Let me ask you this question. How do you think this person rates in work-life balance? Pretty sad, pretty sad. Unfortunately, one of the things that Thoreau said years ago is most men and women lead lives of quiet desperation. In fact, Jason Lehman has kind of captured this here. He says it was spring, but it was summer I wanted, the warm days and the great outdoors. It was summer, but it was fall that I wanted, the colorful leaves and the cool, dry air. It was fall, but it was winter I wanted, the beautiful snow and the joy of the holiday season. It was winter, but it was spring I wanted, the blossoming of nature. I was a child, but it was adulthood I wanted, the freedom and the respect. I was 20, but it was 30 I wanted, to be mature and sophisticated. I was middle-aged, but it was 20 I wanted, the youth and the free spirit. I was retired, but middle-age I wanted, the presence of mind without limitations. My life is over, and I never got what I wanted. Now, one of the things that we talk about in Change Anything is that most of us are one habit away from being healthier, wealthier, and happier. But one of the things I have come to believe as we think about change and managing life balance is that we are blind and outnumbered in many ways, not just in terms of crucial moments, vital behaviors, and sources of influence, but I'd like to share with you 2 other ways that I think we are blinded, and let me share with you a story to express the first one here. Several weeks ago, I was out bicycling. I tend to do that along with my running, and things were going well. I was 3 or 4 miles from the house on this loop that I typically take out around Walt Disney World, and all of a sudden, I heard this pop, and immediately the bike came to a skidding halt. I couldn't figure out what had happened, so I quickly unbuckled myself from my stirrups, stepped out and observed the bike and realized that on the back tire, a spoke had broken. 1 spoke. It had so warped the tire that I had to take the entire brake mechanism apart in order to actually get that bike home. And the tire looked a little bit like this. 1 spoke. Now, when I got home, I pulled out my truing stand. Now, you may not be particularly familiar with bike mechanics, but this is a truing stand. And what this stand is designed to do, along with this spoke wrench, is to be able to insert that new spoke, pull it in, and then begin the process of truing the wheel, which is the expression, bringing it into alignment, creating an integrity and a strength within that wheel. But in order to do this effectively, one of the things that you have to understand a little bit is something about the engineering design of a bicycle tire. If you've ever studied one, there are about 36 spokes. Now, it will vary from bike to bike, but most bikes have about 36 spokes. And each of those spokes are woven from a different side of the tire when it moves from the hub to the exterior. So whenever you are working on a truing stand, you have to understand that anytime you're trying to take that bend out of the wheel, you've got to adjust two spokes at any point in time. You have to tighten one, and you have to loosen the other. And when I began looking at this in terms of its design, I thought it is really quite remarkable because there is not a single spoke on that wheel that acts independently. There's an interdependence that exists and allows that wheel strength, integrity, and function. So if we go back to this truing stand and begin to realize that there are three essential things that anyone who trues a tire has to do. First of all, you've got to stop. You can't do this while you're riding. Just wanted to make that clear, okay? It can be very dangerous. Secondly, I've got to look, because as I spin the tire, there are two calipers here that you move closer and closer to the rim, and when you see that touch, you back the rim off, you take that spoke wrench and you tighten one spoke a little bit, and another spoke correspondingly, you begin to loosen it a little bit. And eventually you will get it very straight and true. But if you happen to be a Tour de France racer, you don't stop there. Because you know that when you come out of the mountains, the Pyrenees, and you begin coming down these mountains, you will be traveling in excess of 60 miles an hour. And I can tell you right now that a small wobble at 5 miles an hour is catastrophic at 60 miles an hour. So they will not only stop and look, but they will listen. And they will spin that tire, and they will listen for a small nick that the naked eye sometimes can't see. Stopping, looking, and listening. Now, I am not here to make you an expert tire truer today. What I am here to hopefully do is to help you to understand that there are some significant lessons in truing a tire and in truing your life. Finding balance, finding meaning, and finding purpose. And to that end, as we talk about in Influencer, and also in Change Anything, you have to become the scientist and the subject. And one of the myths that we have to debunk, which is very much related to not only the bicycle tire but our lives, is the myth of compartmentalization. See, there's a tendency to think that, well, I really don't need to exercise today because it really isn't going to affect the rest of my life. Thanks for playing, try again. Every part of your life is impacted by every other part of your life. And when you begin thinking about this and begin taking this seriously, it helps us to understand that not only are we blind in trying to change our lives in terms of crucial moments and vital behaviors and influences, but we may be blind to this idea of compartmentalization. It does make a difference. And let's talk a little bit about that. If we could use this wheel as a metaphor, and divide your life into 4 general areas. So we're going to take this to represent your life, and we're going to say that a quarter of these spokes are the physical area of your life. A quarter of these spokes are the mental area of your life, in terms of what are you doing to nurture and strengthen that mental part of your life, to lower the stress levels. What are you doing in terms of the relationship levels of your life? What are you doing to nurture the spiritual areas of your life in terms of meaning and purpose? And when you put all of these together, it's really quite interesting, because when you begin to understand that any spoke in any one of these areas, when it is not trued, which creates a variation in this tire, it begins to create vibration in your life. Now, you've all experienced that going down the road, haven't you, in a car? You'll talk to somebody, man, as you're riding in the car, okay, and having to put your dentures back in, you ask them, have you thought about taking the car in to get the wheel aligned? No, all you have to do is, it only makes this shake from 60 to 65. So if you go 70, you're in good shape. And a lot of times we live our lives similarly in the same way. So to understand the interdependence that exists between all of these is incredibly valuable. And so here's my challenge to you. I'm going to suggest that the essentials for truing your life are the same for truing a bicycle wheel. You've got to stop. You got to turn the cell phone off. You've got to look for variations. What's taking place in my life physically? My diet, my exercise program. What's taking place in terms of my stress management related to my mental capacity? What's taking place in my life in terms of my relationships where there's something that I need to do? And what's taking place in terms of how this begins to impact my outlook in life in terms of meaning and purpose? And then you've got to listen. And I'm going to suggest something. You can't do the final piece of this unless you employ 3 ingredients. You'll never listen well unless you have space, silence, and darkness. You cannot true attire in the midst of being with someone else all the time. You've got to find time to get away and to listen to that inner voice. And let me throw something else out here. You've got to take time to listen to other people who love you and want to see you succeed, but may see some glaring weaknesses that you don't see. Stopping, looking, and listening. And in order to do this effectively, it has to be done daily. It has to be done weekly. It has to be done yearly. Because once you get a tire in true, just normal road wear and tear and vibration will cause variations in those spokes. You hit a pothole, and it begins to jar a couple of spokes, but the corresponding tension on that wheel now is transferred to other areas. You've got to find a time to stop, look, and listen.